All right, good afternoon. We're going to call this work session to order. We have a couple proclamations to start our business this evening. The first is for Fire Prevention Week, and I want to invite our staff. We have with us our Fire Marshal, Doug DeHaven. We have Captain Diallo and Mr. Kirshner from the Hagerstown Fire Department. So I'm going to ask them to come up and accept this proclamation. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. This is a proclamation for Fire Prevention Month, October 2016, whereas the City of Hagerstown is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in, working in, and visiting the City of Hagerstown, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas home fires killed 2,745 people in the United States in 2014, according to the National Fire Protection Association, NFPS, and fire departments in the United States responded to 369,500 home fires. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of died in reporting home fires in half, so it cuts that risk in half, and 3 out of 5 deaths result from fires in properties without working smoke alarms. And in 1/5 of all homes with smoke alarms, none were working. So check your smoke alarms. Whereas Hagerstown residents should install smoke alarms in every bedroom, outside every sleeping area, and on every level of the home. And whereas Hagerstown residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas the Hagerstown Fire Department personnel and its volunteer fire companies are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention, engineering, and education. And whereas the 2016 theme, Don't Wait, Check the Date, Replace Smoke Alarms Every 10 Years, effectively serves to remind us that we need working smoke alarms to give us the time to get out safely. Now, therefore, with the support of the City Council, I, David Gysberts, the Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, do hereby recognize the month of October 2016 as Fire Prevention Month and urge all residents to install smoke alarms in every bedroom, outside each sleeping area, and on every level of the home, including the basement, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Hagerstown Fire Department and its community risk reduction campaigns. So gentlemen, I'm going to hand this to you and want to thank you for all the work that you do. I know the fire department is very active in engaging the communities to do this kind of prevention work and education, and unfortunately when we do have fires, I know you go into those particular neighborhoods to help with those efforts, but would you like to say anything about Fire Prevention Month?
I would. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. October each year, the National Fire Protection Association picks a theme to have the fire service drive home the messages about safety, be it prevention, be it engineering, or other elements of fire safety and risk management. In Hagerstown 2015, Hagerstown Fire Department handled almost 3,600 calls for services. Of those, over 300 of those were fires occurring to the citizens of this city, resulting in over $700,000 in losses and, unfortunately, 15 injuries last year, a low increase. Our guys have been working hard since last year and will be hitting the communities again hard over the month of October, being in every kindergarten and first grade over the next 2 weeks to push home the message of safety. The theme of Don't Wait, Check the Date, Replace the Smoke Alarms Every 10 Years is a reminder that these devices go bad. Our department is in every home at least once every 4 to 5 years, checking to make sure they have working smoke alarms, but we still continuously find during fires some that's been removed and replaced. We will provide you smoke alarms for free. You need to call the fire department. We generally are out within 2 hours to put them in, fix them, whatever it takes to make sure you're protected. Have smoke alarms on every floor. Have smoke alarms outside the sleeping area. Have smoke alarms in the bedroom. The first level of survival, alerting that there is a problem. Mayor, Council, thank you very much, and we promise to continue to do a wonderful job at the safety we are known for and suppression when that safety goes wrong.
We do indeed appreciate your efforts. Russ, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, sure. I'll say a few words. I know our guys are looking forward to getting into the schools. We're going to start October 6th, and looking forward to teaching the little ones about fire safety. But I want to appreciate the work that the guys do throughout the year, also in the outreach programs. At special events like the 4th of July, the Country Music Fest, August-Toberfest, our guys are out there pushing the fire prevention and fire safety word out to everybody. So just want to, show some appreciation for the whole year. Thank you, sir.
Indeed, I know they work with Neighborhoods First groups and,
Yes, sir.
and others, and I just want to reiterate that if folks, maybe they're elderly or they can't reach their smoke alarms, the fire department will come to anybody's home and help you see what you got in terms of your smoke alarm situation. So I just want to make sure folks know that and take advantage of that opportunity. Our photographer, I think, wants to get a picture.
Thank you.
Thanks. October is also National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we have Deb Kilgore and Amy Riley with the Hagerstown Parks to come and accept this proclamation. Thank you for being here. And this is a proclamation for National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October 2016. Whereas breast cancer is one of the leading causes of cancer-related deaths among women, second only to lung cancer, and whereas breast cancer occurs mainly in women, but men can get it too, and whereas breast cancer knows few boundaries, it is one of the most frequently diagnosed cancers today. Everyone is potentially at risk, despite age, sex, or family history, and whereas research shows that deaths from breast cancer could be reduced significantly by routine screenings, including mammograms, regular examinations by a physician, and monthly self-examinations, and whereas mammography is recognized as the single most effective method of detecting breast changes that may be cancerous long before physical symptoms can be seen or felt, and whereas in recognition of breast cancer awareness, Park in the Pink awareness ribbons will be tied on parking meters and trees in the city center during the month of October, and I should add that our clock tower is now pink colored. And whereas during National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we renew our commitment to fighting this disease, raising awareness, and supporting those affected by breast cancer. Now, therefore, I, David Gysberts, the mayor of the city of Hagerstown, Maryland, do hereby proclaim October 2016 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Hagerstown, Maryland. Thank you very much. And would you like to talk about some of your efforts for this month?
Well, as you just mentioned, we lined the city of Hagerstown with the pink bows and ribbons to raise awareness. It serves as a little bit of a reminder. We all know about breast cancer. We know that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but seeing those ribbons kind of gives people a little bit of a push and a nudge, as a reminder, I have to do that. And it's not just about a reminder to do it, but to do it early. Having a mammogram done early can really lessen your chances or increase your chances of survival, but lessen your chances of having to have treatment. The sooner you catch it, the more likely you are to have less treatment and less, invasive things going on with your body. Just to reiterate, Breast Cancer Awareness Cumberland Valley, we provide mammograms for women who have little or no insurance. And then we also provide a lot of free programs for women once they've been diagnosed with breast cancer. We do a lot of things to help them and their families get through this journey because it is something very scary. I'd like to thank the council and you, the mayor, for letting us do both the bows and the ribbons, and also, of course, the lighting of the tower. I came down through downtown last night, and it looked really awesome with that lit up. So thank you.
You bet. And Amy, tell us about Powerful Pink.
Yeah, good evening, good afternoon. Par for Pink, it's the 4th annual golf tournament held at the Greens at Hamilton Run. 4 years ago, we developed a partnership with Meritus Health's Make a Different breast cancer screening program, and golfers that register for the tournament, 50% of those proceeds go to benefit their organization. So it's an 18-hole tournament. You get lunch, you get a raffle ticket, a player gift bag. We are still taking registrations for this Friday. Shotgun start at 1:30. So we're just inviting golfers to participate in this tournament and to be a part of this wonderful endeavor. If I could also make a statement on behalf of Meredith about their program. The Make a Difference program offers free breast health education, screenings, and assistance with mammograms for uninsured and underinsured women in our community. Clinics are held twice a month with a certified nurse practitioner. Additional services include free transportation, translation services, and a breast health navigator to assist patients through the process of screening, diagnosis, and treatment. In addition to this being a fundraiser, the Par for Pink event strives to raise awareness that while rare, men can also be diagnosed with breast cancer. And just wanted to mention that in 2014, we had 31 golfers participate and donated $1,057 to their organization. Last year, we had 41 golfers participate, and we donated about $1,400 to their organization. So again, registration's open, and we invite you to participate this Friday.
Awesome. And I just want to say, it really is more than just a woman's issue. As a son whose mom is a survivor of breast cancer, it affects men as sons, as fathers, as husbands. So it's important for us to nag those important people in our lives to make sure they're taking care of themselves. So very good. I'm sure Aaron wants to get a picture. All right, we're going to talk about annual stadium maintenance now. We have our city engineer with the general manager for the Suns.
Good afternoon. With me is Travis Painter, the general manager of the Suns, and it's that time of year where we come in and review some of the improvements we'd like to make to the stadium in the upcoming off-season so that we're prepared to go on April 6th, I think it is, or something like that.
Before you get started into that, can I just say congratulations to the Hagerstown Suns for such a great baseball, first of all, but also I know there was an increase in attendance this year, and I wanted to recognize the fact that there was a lot of hard work behind that effort, so congratulations.
Thank you.
So, Travis, if you want to talk a little bit about the thought process behind what we were doing here.
Yeah, so the first item that we really wanted to look at was doing some renovations and improvements to the bathrooms. A lot of you know when you come out to a game, it's kind of dungeness in the bathrooms, and one of the things that we hear a lot from fans is you need to do something about the bathrooms. So we actually put a survey out at the end of the year, left it up to the fans, said, hey, what can we do to improve? It was mainly geared towards what can we do as a staff to improve, but the number one thing that always came up was improve the bathroom. So that's why we chose the bathrooms as the number one item. Number two, for the lighting, another thing that we heard a lot from fans wasn't necessarily geared towards the lighting, but do small renovations, do things to kind of bring the stadium up to date, that type of thing. So that's kind of why we went with the lighting issue there. The lighting that we're actually adding is actually a safety issue. We had a couple break-ins during the season, and we have guys that are there 1, 2 o'clock in the morning that are running back and forth doing laundry from each clubhouse, and there's not a lot of lighting on the back side of the building. So for their safety, we wanted to put lights back there that they can turn on and off so that they can see in case there is somebody in the stadium, they can kind of better protect themselves there. And the final item was replacing the padding behind home plate. That's kind of a player safety issue, but also kind of an aesthetics issue. We replaced the padding on the outfield wall this season, and the padding behind home plate is also in need of replacing, and will now match the outfield wall as well.
So I included a few pictures just to give you a sense of what he's talking about there. Specifically on the bathrooms, you can see the conditions there. We could really spruce those up a lot. The lighting, you know, when you have those dingy yellow lights like that and you convert it over LED, it makes an amazing transformation of the brightness and the just much more inviting. Mm-hmm. So that's our proposal to address these, I think, rather practical things at the stadium. And I guess if you have any questions, we'll be glad to take them now.
Any questions or concerns, comments? I think it seems, like you said, a very reasonable list of improvements.
I have two questions. The first is, the two items that are not able to be funded, are they more associated with mere upgrades, or were they associated with requests to address safety as well?
When Travis and I first started talking, we basically said, let's try to get the whole stadium up to LED. And the two items that we couldn't, because of the cost, one was in the grandstand. So that's as you're physically sitting in the grandstand watching the game, the lights that are in the grandstand, there's not that many. There's like 6, I think.
Yeah.
But you gotta take the net down, you gotta get a lift on the field, it's expensive to replace 6 fixtures. So that's the one, and then the other were just some random ones, like in places like,
Shop and stuff like
shop
that.
and things like that most fans wouldn't even notice. So we, where we had to cut something, that's the ones we chose to cut back.
Okay. The second question is under the public restroom improvements. It says that the cost is $13,900, assuming that the labor provided by Parks Division staff is not charged.
Right.
Is that typical, and what would you estimate that charge?
It is
of time
typical
to be?
of how we've handled the stadium for years, is the materials are paid for out of a CIP budget, but the labor is just paid for out of our operating budget. I would estimate it's probably like $3,000 or $4,000, something like that, for painting and some of this work that'll be done. Some of this work is obviously done by contractors, like sinks and things like that. We have to use a plumber. But for the work that we can do in-house, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, can somebody take me back, because I'm not remembering this. The Suns are now leasing the stadium from us. Exactly how much is the amount that they're leasing it for?
$35,000.
Okay, so we are at what then, as far as the improvements?
The ones being proposed?
Well, it says here, staff believes we complete the above list work for a total estimated cost of $35,000. Okay, so are we over the 35,000? Okay, how much would we be over the 35,000 if in fact we could do the lighting as well?
Well, if we did the extra lights to make the whole stadium LED, we'd be adding another 6,900. So we'd be like 41,900.
Okay.
Is that going to be the primary project next year?
The lighting? Yes, sir.
One year it was
Is there any
rebuilt.
reason, Rodney, is there any reason why we couldn't go ahead and plan to do that and then just, I mean, these people are very good for the money. We can rely on them and plan that those improvements be made and
Take care of all the
just
work.
take it out of the next year's.
Yeah,
Just the issue though, when I hear the lighting you're talking about, one is in the shop area, which is an area that the fans aren't even gonna be in. And the other sounds like an awful expensive item for what you're doing. And I would just urge, before we say spend that kind of money for those things, I could be wrong, but I would suspect if we had another $6,000 to spend, that it may be more in the Suns and everybody else's interest to spend it on something other than shop lighting and the expense of those lights in the grandstand. I could be wrong, but it sounds like you're not getting a lot of juice for the squeeze for that.
if you have a comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some other things that we could look
That's
at
what I would think.
as well. The grandstand one would be helpful because it is kind of dark underneath the grandstand, but obviously the shop and stuff like that, that could be something that is down the road to get upgraded.
Yeah, I would agree. The grandstand would be the one I would do. The other ones I probably wouldn't.
I would agree with that. So it sounds like there's a consensus to go ahead and get the work done on the lights for the grandstand this year and just mark that one off the list. And Councilmember Munson is suggesting that whatever cost over the $35,000 for materials, we I guess take out of the next year's lease
Okay.
payment that we,
So what we'd be approving is like $38,285 worth of work, to answer your question.
That's fine, that's fine, that's what I wanted to know, because I didn't know where we were with that, and, you know, that's not a problem,
Okay.
not for that.
there you go.
So I guess we'll vote on it later this month, and
We can.
we'll get it done.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you for your time.
You bet. The next item is amendments to the water and wastewater policy. There are three distinguished department heads here.
These two. Everybody know what we're talking about, right?
So Kathy, I'll just turn it over to you, but I will say that this came to us basically because there is a development being proposed, and I think the revisions that are being proposed are reasonable and pretty limited in terms of what the potential would be down the line. But it certainly is, I think, worthy of the council's consideration, and that's why I wanted to make sure it got in front of us as soon as possible. So take it away.
Because the proposal that we have before you is amendments to the city's water and wastewater policy, which is a policy that indicates how the city will or will not extend water service outside the medium range growth area. And there's 7 exceptions, and so we're proposing is to make some clarification changes to exception number 3, and to add a new exception for affordable housing projects in proximity to the county's economic development target areas. And for those who are not too familiar with the city's water and wastewater policy, and I don't know why everyone would be, it's a policy we've had in place, and we've tweaked it over the years, but it first went into effect in 2004 to help us administer the city's annexation policy for those situations where requests are made outside the growth boundaries. And in 2004, that was the county's urban growth area, and then 2008, it changed to the city's medium range growth area, where we say we're not going to serve beyond that boundary unless you have a project that is eligible for one of the 7 exceptions and it's approved by the city. And so those exceptions have to do with like projects, properties where the health department has condemned a well, or there's an impending failure. If we have pre-existing agreements, and we have quite a few of those, if there's, it would make a vital improvement to the system, if it's a vital economic development project is recommended by the county and the city, and that pretty much covers it. And then 2 of those exceptions are approved by the mayor and city council, the other 5 by the utilities director, generally with a lot of input from city staff. As the mayor mentioned, this is brought before you because of a proposal that's being proposed near, in the proximity of the Hopewell Valley Economic Development Target Area, to make an expansion to Hopewell Manor onto an adjacent property. City staff and the mayor got together to consider whether or not this project would be eligible for one of the exceptions in the water wastewater policy, and we determined that it did not. But then we had quite a conversation about affordable housing and how desirable it is to help spread it around instead of always concentrating it seems like, in the center of the city. And then the consensus reached that the best way to accommodate this through the water wastewater policy would be to add another exception for affordable housing projects in proximity to the county's economic development target areas. And then looking at this, we need to look at the consistency with the city's comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan has 2 action items that deal with this sort of situation. One being that we should develop cooperative agreements with the county on appropriate situations and conditions for provisions of water and or wastewater outside the medium range growth area, and that we should work with the county to create a balanced regional housing approach with emphasis on a fair share distribution of the region's rental and affordable housing. The other thing to take into consideration is the analysis in the comprehensive plan about the capacity of our facilities and the growth demand from vacant land out there, or land that could be redeveloped, whether or not we have the facilities to accommodate it. And so I looked at the county zoning map and the county zoning ordinance to see what are the possibilities out there, and there's not that much vacant RM zone land in proximity to the county's economic development target area. So this is not likely to come up very often if we accommodate this exception, so it shouldn't have a big impact on our growth projections in the comprehensive plan. And I forgot to attach the maps for you, so you just have to take my word for it that there's not that much RM zone land And I spoke to county staff, and he said that this project to expand Hopewell Valley from 64 units to 60, with 60 more units, and also to upgrade all the units, is the first multifamily project they've had in quite some time. So they do not get a lot of multifamily projects anyway. And it's our experience that when people are talking affordable housing, they're talking townhouses or multifamily. It's very rare that someone is talking like a Gateway Crossing, single-family homes or two-family. Usually, it would be townhouses and multifamily. In the county, the only way you can do townhouses and multifamily is with RM zoning or with a planned unit development, which they call MXD or something like that. And so we took it to the Planning Commission on the 28th, and they, after reviewing what we had put together for them, they determined that they would be in favor of this proposal because it would accommodate a comprehensive plan goal for distribution of affordable housing in a region particularly near economic development target areas, and given that the current zoning of land outside the MRGA in proximity to these target areas, there's limited opportunities for this new exception, so it should not have a big impact on our growth demands and projections. And so in a nutshell, what's being proposed is to make a couple of clarification amendments to the preamble and exception number 3 to remove confusion that arises periodically as we administer this policy, and then add an exception 8 for affordable housing projects recommended by the county commissioners and other officials where the project would be limited to households with incomes up to 80% of area median income, and where the project is located in close proximity to economic development target areas, and adjacent, and the planning commission added this, and adjacent to development served by water and or wastewater.
Go ahead, Don.
I have 2 questions. What figure, what number is 80% of the average income? Do you know the number, or roughly?
It would be for the county median family income, and so then it would, and I don't know what, it's considerably higher than the city's median
It'd probably
family
be
income.
45,000, I think it's around 57.
477.
Yeah, it's 57, so 45,600 is 80% of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a little slightly confused. Do the present 64 units have city water?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is only an expansion.
Onto an adjoining lot.
Yeah,
And
and we were fortunate enough to start working on the front end with the owners and developers who are here this evening, if you did have any questions of the gentleman. Operationally advantageous to us, there's currently 7 meters feeding the units that are in place now. They're gonna rehabilitate all that, do some movement. What we would do is go to our existing policy in place now, put 1 master meter, everything on the other side of the master meter is owned so they can make their own movement, not have to work with us. It gets us out of that business of the extra water lines that we don't need.
Right.
Lets them make the moves. It helps them immensely, and it helps us immensely also.
Yep. Okay, good.
Kristin?
You say that there's not that much land zoned for RM now, right?
Vacant land, yeah.
So,
In proximity to the
And-
target areas.
and I'll just say that every one of these steps to me is sort of a step down that slope of you know, the decrease in available capacity that we sort of have in the area we've defined to serve, which I don't like, and I'd likely not be in favor of this. But if there is a majority in favor, I think a couple of things should be included. One is use the term in here, area median income, and it looks like the Census Bureau uses the term median household income. I don't know if they're different. In other words, if one talks about sort of the per capita and the other one talks about household, but I would make sure that whatever terminology we're using is the terminology that applies to whatever the affordable housing industry program standards are. So, you know, I'm sure that HUD has a standard terminology. I wouldn't want to use one term and then a developer say, oh, well, this is the term we meant. You know, we didn't mean this other term, and therefore we can have incomes of 70,000, not, you know, and so I think there are different standards. I would just hope we pick one, the appropriate one, and that it's consistent with the terminology that we use, you know, inside the corporate boundary. The second is you don't have in here, other than that, it doesn't define what an affordable housing project is. It doesn't place a limit on size. which I guess I just find a little concerning. You know, today we're talking about 60 units, you know, and yeah, that's not a big deal, but, you know, when you're talking about what is permissible in the RM district, I don't know what that density is. Just like we had the conversation last week about the Deerfield Knolls property. You know, in one district, the density, you know, is 6 units an acre, and in another, you know, it's 13 units an acre, and I don't know what that is, but clearly, you know, if there's a change in that, and a change in type or style, the good part about this particular item is we kind of know what they plan to do. We kind of know what's already there. But I wouldn't want to write an exception in here and then developers, you know, as they may be inclined to sort of gravitate toward that exception and say, oh, I'm near this area, I'm zoned this now, I can get zoned that, work within these guidelines, and, you know, and suddenly, you know, this acreage we didn't envision and this number of units we didn't envision are suddenly, you know, catapulted into these parameters that we've left a bit open-ended.
Each one would be case by case, and this body would have to approve it.
Yeah.
And the exceptions aren't guaranteed.
So you would always know specifically what's being proposed in terms of the number of units. Is there a way to quantify what he's getting at in terms of knowing how much land around the urban or MRGA is zoned in this way, and what the potential capacity demand might be? Is that a
But it's
calculable?
whatever land is zoned now. What I'm saying is,
Right.
somebody up near the airport could say, oh, I see this exception's out here now. You know, and and I guess I find it a little bit hokey, because I know where Hopewell Manor is, which is in the proverbial middle of nowhere, as it applies to you know, the Valley Mall and things like that. And so, you know, I've worked with individuals, you know, in private profession, that you know, I would be curious, you know, if there is an actual link, and this provision makes a fairly large assumption that if we do this near these economic centers, that we're doing it for the benefit of individuals that are working in these economic centers. And I guess I view our extension of services not to include that sort of reach. I just think that when we do these other ones, we quantify it. You know, it's much more specific. This one I find to be pretty sort of nebulous and out there, and I don't.
And Kathy, we always speak about the allocation of capacity that's available in a defined area, but just for your knowledge, for the water service as it stands right now, we've not reached 85% of our allocation from the state, which is 15 million gallons per day at the plant. So we're fast approaching that, but 15 million is what we'll request next for allocation. Plant's capable of 20 million. So since 1927, you know, we're at basically 11.8 million a day with a capacity of 20 million at the plant. We're not going to run out anytime soon, but it's how it's allocated within the defined area.
Sure. I just think, you know, I was thinking about this policy and how many times we've had proposals come in the last 4 years, and I can think of maybe 3 or a few. But I think what's noteworthy is that this mayor and council have been very open-minded towards those exceptions, that we do want growth within the heart of the city and even on the edge of our urban growth boundary, you know, where we have the Hopewell Valley. And there's no way of guaranteeing that people who live in the apartments near the Hopewell Valley corporations will work there, but it certainly creates more opportunity for them. And what do most people make at warehouse jobs, like $12,000 or $12 an hour, $15 an hour? You know, having a place close by is pretty important. There is, I think, public transportation service. They have a little bus shelter or something there that I know that they're proposing to improve and you know, make even more usable. So I think
This particular project is right across the highway from the Hopewell Valley Industrial Park area.
So I think it's.
On Hopewell Road.
Yeah, and so I think that's why, like it was very well stated by you, there's no way to really say, okay, well, it meets any of these other criteria, but where it is and for what they're proposing, I think it would be, it benefits the utilities in terms of having the master meter and then have everything on the other side privately maintained and owned. And, obviously there's more water customers, so the city benefits in that way. But in terms of I think we do know the overall, I think they're gonna be rehabilitating the units that are there now, 60 couple odd units, and they're gonna be creating about the same amount in addition to that in the adjacent lots. So I think, it's not like this is a Pandora's box we're gonna open up. And quite frankly, I think what we're doing by saying this is exactly in line with those planning goals, comprehensive plan goals, which is so that the city is not constantly the heart of the city being looked at for these multifamily affordable housing projects, that there really should be a fair share when it comes to what is within the corporate limits and outside the corporate limits, or happen to be in areas that access city services. So that, for those reasons, I think it's a good policy change, in addition to some of the clarification for number 3.
And I shared Councilman Aleshire's concern whether we were opening up Pandora's box, which is why I'm trying to figure out where out in the county, outside the MRGA, could you do townhouses and multifamily? And it's not that much, and the county doesn't seem to be intrigued with rezonings for RM.
I want to revisit this 80% issue for just a minute. The wording that we have on this is the project will be limited to households with incomes of 80% of area median income. And Kristin raised a good point with this. Is that the standard for the 64 units that are presently existing? Or will that be, these written words here, be the standard for the new units, meaning that there will be different standards?
You could ask the developer directly, but at the planning commission meeting, they indicated this would be a little stricter than what they had planned to do, but that they could accommodate it. But you could ask them directly if you care to.
For the whole project, 124 units, not just the new part.
The answer is.
Yeah, so we can get your comments on the mic here for the benefit of the home audience, for the YouTubers out there.
The YouTubers.
Yeah, we stream live now.
That's great. This is great.
Yeah.
Arthur Edwards with Pax Edwards.
Jeff Paxson, Pax Edwards.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, do you want me to go?
Go.
Okay. So what we have out there right now is we have 64 units that were built in the 80s by the Edwards family. And we are in the process of securing financing to completely redevelop those existing 64 units. Those 64 units are restricted at,
Well, it's.
I'm trying to figure out how to put it in there.
60%, but it's 60% of median income, but it's a different, what happens is it's rural development financing, so what they try to do is place people that make as little money as possible to pay the rent that's there, so, but just say 60% of median income.
Yeah.
It's kind of the easy way to talk.
Right. So that development is at 60% of area median income, and our new phase of 60 new apartments, which I brought a rendering just to give an example. This is a community that we just built in Hartford County that we opened in January. It was 84 apartments. It's a 3-story building with a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units. This community, 90% of the units are restricted at 60% or less of area median income for Hartford County, and the remaining 10% of the units are at market rate, which effectively is still 80% or less of area median income. That's how we figured we would qualify under 80. So at the end of the day, all 124 units would be restricted at 60% or less of median income, at 60% or less of median income, except for 10% of the new 60. We're going to have 6 units at market, but those 6 units can still qualify under 80. So that's sort of how
There's
how
a
it
lot
came
of
about.
sixties and eighties. Did you get it?
Yeah. Did that all make sense?
I think I
That's
got it.
really confusing. It's,
It's in our heads
we have
so
big
far.
spreadsheets that map all this out. But the beauty of it is that this is the new development, it's about a $16 million investment in your community. Just based on, just looking at this, I mean, we're very proud of our product, and we're gonna bring a really nice product to the city of Hagerstown. And the rehab itself is about a $9 million rehab in an existing community. So all in all, supporting, this policy and our project brings about $25 million of investment to the area. And so we think that's a good thing. And at the same time, it's really, producing high-quality affordable housing, which we know the area needs, so.
I know that the first part, because I know somebody that was interested in going out there, and I know that it was not a high end. No, it was a big concern, so I'm glad to see that something at least now is going to be done with that.
Yeah.
Because that's what concerns me, even though it's gonna be county, correct?
Mhm.
It still is a concern. It's what can still trickle down into the city,
Right.
all right? When they can't afford that, then they move in and they see what they can get here.
But
And that's
hopefully
big
it'll be a
concern.
model for other types
Hopefully,
of development
hopefully.
too.
And now that I know where Jason stands, those flags have kind of like lowered, because I thought, okay, is he here to see if this goes through? Do we have a developer out here? And this is my concern, okay, as Kristin pointed out. Is Jason gonna find a loophole? Okay. So we'll just run with it, okay?
Can't promise I won't try.
I know that, Jason.
The one thing, just to add.
Well, I
is-
will say, I'll give Jason a lot of credit, because he did analyze the existing policy quite thoroughly to see if there was, if this
Believe
would
me.
fit in that, and, we determined that in fact it did not, but we.
When he appears, and that's not often anymore, it's like, okay, flags up, half mast, okay? Yeah.
So, it sounds like, Councilmember Nigh, you would support this amendment then?
I have some more
sure.
questions that I have to
Okay.
go back to staff with, but.
Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Munson.
Will you use local contractors, local help?
We always go to local contractors first.
Okay, thank
So, we have a general contractor that comes out, but then we always, when we bid out to all the local groups first. It's so much cheaper for us to use local groups than it is to bring people from where we come from. So yes.
Councilmember Metzner, did you have any questions or comments? Councilmember Aleshire.
I have one last question. Is this current neighborhood of homes, is it at the end of any specific affordable housing program life cycle?
Are you talking about, can you be more clear, I guess?
Typically, this type of development will enter into either a state or federal program whereby it receives that credit for like a 15 to 20-year period. Is this particular development at the end of any of those types of identified life
What you're
cycles?
talking about is an extended use or your resident, it's not. There are existing financing that has expired, and there was an ability to prepay the existing financing that we haven't done, and we're gonna re-up in our extended use. So upon redoing the financing, it'll extend the restrictions on the use 30 years.
On the existing units.
On the existing use.
Yeah.
30 years.
And then the new units will have a new extended use life cycle for its new units,
For those tax credits?
for the tax credit units, yes.
Any other questions or comments, feedback? Thank you very much. So I guess we'll discuss next steps. So if everybody's okay with moving forward, we could do an introduction.
Well, we have to amend the policy first, so I think that would be scheduled for
Do a special session.
special session on the 11th or the
Okay.
18th, and then the actual approval of the exception will be
Okay.
another.
At the
Yeah,
regular
we-
session.
In the past, these have been approved by motion, so it's a one action
Yeah,
thing.
it's one action.
Oh,
And I
resolution,
imagine very
okay.
soon after that, you would get the review of the request for Hopewell Manor.
Mhm. Okay. Is there another question?
I'm being asked to ask for clarification.
come up, but I'm not sure I'm welcome.
Oh, you are, please.
All right,
It's-
I have
Sure.
one quick question, rather than whisper to Kathy. Good
Yeah.
to see you. I missed you too, Penny. The policy, we very much appreciate the policy exception being drafted to help this project as well as maybe others that would come along. I agree with Kathy, I don't think there will be many. But the one question that came up in reviewing the draft policy was the other agencies that are identified in the policy as being recommending parties. You had city administrator, county commissioners, director of utilities. There was a very long list of folks that were going to be asked to provide a recommendation. And we talked about this last week at the Planning Commission. Our concern was that that meant that we were going to have to go to each and every one of the 5 different bodies or individuals and get their approval, so that any one of those 5 could potentially say no, and then the decision is not really the mayor and council's. Kathy explained it as that the intent was more that all those groups would participate in the conversation, but the decision would be the mayor and council's, which is obviously fine with us, that we come to this body, it's your decision to make, it's your resources. We just want to know how to sort of navigate through the policy exception, was our question.
Yeah, in the past, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, it's always just been the economic development stuff, and we've readily gotten the recommendation from the county.
Mm-hmm.
Our council includes something that all the other aforementioned parties recommended against it.
Mm-hmm.
But your question of whether 4 were for and 1 was against, it would be up to the elected body here to make the decision.
Yeah.
Just want to know which rules to play by.
Yeah, well, and Kathy can obviously work you through the process in terms of the requests and.
If you get approval from them all, Jason, you don't have to worry that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's where we'll shoot for.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item is the general fund agency contributions. Welcome our distinguished finance director to the table. And her trusty assistant.
Evening.
Good evening.
It's that time of year again.
It is beginning to be that time of year again. Yes, it is. So we are here this evening, Raina and I, because the city of Hagerstown, we drafted a general fund agency contribution policy in December of 2014. And within that policy, we just simply said that each October, we would come back and sit with this body and look at, within the policy, we have identified a number of agencies that we guarantee that we will fund in the coming year. Right now, as of changes that we made last October, there are 8 agencies. So the first thing that we're doing is sitting down this evening to make sure that the listing of the 8 agencies that we have are still good and still agencies that we want to keep on this list for fiscal year 18. The second part is, excuse me, we also indicated that in October, we would come back and ask this body the amount of funding to include in the next year's budget. And the reason that it's important, even though it's October, so in November, Rena and I will be sending out memos to the agencies that are identified to let them know of our time frame, remind them of the application that they have to complete and their financial statements and budgeted items that they're required to send to us. We'll receive that in January, put it within our budget. Of course, when we bring the budget back, March 31st, you still have the opportunity to look at the overall allocation of the funding and make any changes at that time.
So the first question.
So the first question, yes, I'm so
Any
sorry.
changes to the agencies? Is everybody okay with the 8 that
And-
are on the list?
Yes, so the
currently?
8 agencies, just as a reminder, Community Rescue Services, Hagerstown Municipal Band, Hagerstown Neighborhood Development Partnership, Maryland Symphony Orchestra, the Maryland Theater, Washington County Historical Society, Washington County Museum of Fine Arts, and Washington County Free Library. Of those 8, there's only one agency that receives $5,000, and so they receive theirs as one lump payment from us in July. The rest all receive quarterly payments on a reimbursement basis. So actually today's October, so we will be looking at reimbursing the other 7 agencies for their first quarter as soon as they produce documents for us.
Mr. Munson?
Mayor, I'd like to raise an issue that probably we need to talk about a little bit. Is there have been a number of requests, I believe, I don't know if they've been in writing or not, but they've certainly been verbal about the Arts Council. And there's no question about how much the Arts Council participates in the redevelopment of downtown Hagerstown. And so I guess an issue that should come up is whether or not the Arts Council should be included in this list.
I would ask your colleagues.
No, I don't have a
colleagues on
problem
the
with the
council.
Arts Council being included. I would not be given any guaranteed total amount of funding would change, so there may be some.
You'd have to rework the total
Some diminution of
allocations.
funding to some of the others. I can think of two in particular that we could probably take a little bit of money from and add the Arts Council too.
Well, it actually could come from the contingency, couldn't it?
It could, but then there wouldn't be a contingency fund. I mean, if the idea, and what I'm looking at, it seems to me we have tradition, how much has the Arts Council asked for? Does anybody know?
They actually put in writing to us to be considered a member, but they did not put in a request or an amount.
But we
So,
did provide them an amount in the past.
history-wise, we provided them $3,000 annually over a 3-year period. Fiscal year 13, 14, and 15. Now, in fiscal year 15, they did request $5,000 from us.
I said
We only gave them 3 because we couldn't.
We fund community rescue service to the tune of $50,000, is that right?
45, I think.
45,000.
And how about HNDP?
That one's 50.
Yeah, I think between the two of those, you can find the funding for the Arts Council.
And I just want to make one correction to that. So HNDP, through general fund agency contributions, we only fund $28,450.
Oh, okay.
Right.
They do partner with CDBG on some other things and are eligible for some funding there,
Okay.
but I don't think it's quite 50.
No,
I
that's
think those
general
two
fund
agencies
agencies.
could afford, the amount of funding we're talking about, I think the big thing the Arts Council would like even more than the money is the acknowledgement that they'll be
Right.
on this list.
Sure.
I think you're right.
And if we get them on this list, and if we fund them for $3,000, between 3 and 5, I have no doubt.
Well, that may help them access other sources of
Right,
funding, too.
so I have no problem with putting them on the list and seeing if we can get some of that money out of these other agencies that I think can afford it.
How about you, Mr. Aleshire? What do you think?
I mean,
No.
the difficulty I have is, and I had this, 4 years ago, when we made the changes, is when I look at this group of entities in which we provide this public funding, I guess I tend to look at it in that exact term and have to say to myself, one of two things. Is this an entity that represents efforts specific to the city of Hagerstown, number one? Or is this an entity that provides a service to the public that does so on our behalf to some degree that if they didn't, we would be providing it? And so when I look at, the list of entities, the more you could say, well, we could add this one or that one. I mean, when you start talking about the Arts Council, I understand that, but then there are literally hundreds. I mean, the Miller House and the Discovery Station, you could go on and probably on just about every street in a 16-block direction, and find them, and you could say, well, we'll cut here from this one and cut from that one, to sort of make up these bits and pieces, which is why I like the fact that we have this 10,000 to say at any point in the year, if some group comes forward and says, hey, we're doing this specific project, that has some benefits specific to the city of Hagerstown's, events and operations and things, then we say here, here's a contribution to that. I think for me, while I'm not opposed to the Arts Council as an entity, to add to the list, I'd rather be able to say to them, hey, oh, you're gonna partner with, you know, the Maryland Theater on this one thing down here, and you need X funding, you know, we have this available, rather than what I view as the core entities to be able to say, this entity provides a service that we would be doing if they weren't, or this entity provides a service to the citizens of Hagerstown that is specific and representative to the city of Hagerstown.
Well, I don't want to pretend to speak for the Arts Council, but I think what they would respond to your two criteria would be that they absolutely have a city connection in terms of.
They do.
What, where they're located, the
So
work
is the Miller
they're
House.
involved in with, well,
So
we
is
do, we
Discovery.
support the Historical Society because we recognize the partnerships we've had for a long time between the Historical Society and the city, but the events downtown, everything we're doing with public arts, I think they would argue that probably more so than any other municipality in Washington County, they really do emphasize Hagerstown and the work and the connectedness that they have. And in terms of the public service, I mean, that certainly is something that we wouldn't be doing on our own, the work that they do in terms of promoting public art, the exhibitions that they have for local artists and to engage that community. So I can see where that will be, I would anticipate their response to those points, that you would have proved their point for them by saying that there are those two criteria.
If they would come in and say, hey, we're working on the trail, you know, in the next year, you know, in order for us to assist in working on this trail, you know, it's gonna be about $3,700 to do, you know, some part of the process. I'd say, great, you know, here we have this amount, we'll add to it for that particular item. No differently than if Discovery came in and said, hey, we've got this event, you know what I mean, it's gonna take up, we're gonna need $1,200.
So your issue is there's
and I
nothing
guess
real
that's-
specific here in terms of what that money's gonna do.
I guess
in
none of
terms
those
how it's
entities
connected to
fit
the
those
city.
two criteria specifically for me.
I see what you're saying.
I think adding
But then
on-
there's
And again, I
an
think-
endless list of them that could make the argument that they do.
Correct. I
Right,
think
right.
adding one to the list, that's
Mhm.
where I'm at. And as far as, and I'm sorry, Lou, but Community Rescue started out years ago at $100,000. Their holdings, yes, are there, but the holdings are for a building that has also got to be built, and it hasn't yet happened. And I know that with the services that they have provided, I don't know what's gonna happen, because everybody is running very, very tight. And as far as the, oh my God, and I call it the home store, because I'll always call it the home store. They are more the city of Hagerstown than what they are as getting anything from the county, but yet they also do help the county. I don't wanna see that taken from them. That's why I think that it's reasonable to use, as we have done before with the $10,000, as Kristin has said, because that's why we've had it there
I agree
as a
with-
contingency.
I agree with Lou in the sense that I think the money is less important to them than the status on this core agency list for
And that's why I'm opposite of that.
whatever reason that, that might help them access other funding or just to stress the importance of their relationship with the city.
And we'll discuss it at budget time.
Yeah. So, the second question is, I would just want to keep the total funding level as it is on here at $205,000.
I'm good with that.
So it sounds like everybody's good with that.
Yep, as long as we can afford it, Michelle.
I agree with Penny, I mean.
Raina, did you hear that? Take a note.
I agree.
I look at Michelle because she
But-
can scream
but-
at me,
but I
okay?
think Penny's absolutely right. I think that when you're asking us that question in October and we haven't looked at the budget yet, my answer would be, I wouldn't increase it.
And those triennial reassessments haven't come in
And when we
yet.
look at the budget, we'll decide whether we can afford to maintain it.
Right, include it or not.
Right.
When it gets to you. But, so
Yeah.
then there's no changes to the 8 agencies at this time either.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. And that brings us to the city administrator's comments.
The only thing I'd like to mention is this weekend, we have the Harvest Hoedown at Fairgrounds Park from 1 to 4, and it's a 15-year celebration.
My granddaughter will be opening it.
Wonderful.
So hopefully her throat's okay and the brain
That's
will hold
wonderful.
on.
Yeah.
So thanks to everyone involved with that, the staff and the volunteers and then all the people that it takes to pull off one of these festivals, so. That's all, Mayor.
Great, thanks. And Councilmember Munson.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the passing of Frank Irk. I knew Frank for a very long time and worked with him in other capacities in my life. And he was totally dedicated to this community and improving this community. Did a lot for a lot of people. And when he passed, he left this community a much better place than he found it.
Indeed, well said. Councilmember Aleshire?
I think I sent you guys an email, I don't know, earlier regarding an article that was recently in the paper. A young man appears to have been living in a storage unit. And I had mentioned that, you know, in my walks, I think I'd seen at least one other individual that may be living in one of the adjacent storage units. And I am certain, I don't live under the illusion that that probably doesn't happen from time to time, and more storage units around our city than we would care to believe. But I think the bigger issue for me that I tried to convey, and that I've tried to convey in probably the last dozen or so articles that staff sort of gives us, is this element of activity or behavior where individuals create a negative impact on citizens. It has a pattern that I think requires some deeper view. That an individual, I mean, here's an individual that I believe has had 2 charges within a year. Before that year, does not appear to have been an individual living in our community, and clearly, when you look at records, has ties to residency in another state. And there's probably at least 12 that I've sent email responses to folks on in the last year where I've said, okay, here's an individual that a year ago, let's take the one that lived over near Park Circle, that had the assault out at Walmart. 6 months ago had an assault at a Subway in Thurmont, and 6 months before that an assault in Frederick. And at some point, there has to be this question, that we ask, because every time, the newspaper says this is a Hagerstown man or a Hagerstown woman or Hagerstown activity, and you say to yourself, here's an individual that wasn't in the community a year ago, has had one or more altercations within the community since that time, and there's no discussion of what brought the individual to the community, and if it was some type of service-oriented element or offering that brought them, what happened to the breakdown between the leaving the service or from the service and existence within the community. And I don't think that's I don't think that's an issue of profiling any specific segment of the population, but I definitely think it's a question that requires asking so that we understand, and I keep saying this about the agencies that sort of operate within our community, so that we understand how that operation occurs, where a person goes from step A to step Z, and how we sort of pick up the pieces of the problems associated with it along the way, or when they vacate their service responsibilities. And I know we can't address that, within the next month and a half that we have, or month that we have, but
It does
God,
seem
I
like
hope
our
whoever's
police
sitting at
department
this
needs a
table
social
2 months
worker.
from now
Mhm.
makes that a priority for their discussion, because as I said before, and I said again in the email today, we can make all the investment we want in downtown. If we don't address that issue, those investments will be for naught. And whether it's that type of activity, the bed bug issue that we're reading about, those are the things I think we need to work on.
Councilmember Metzger. Councilmember Nigh.
The only thing that I can tell you is that I still continue to get calls, and I see it myself as far as trash being on the street. And bulk items, we're seeing more and more bulk items. Sofas, love seats, chairs, beds, dressers, you name it, we got it. And we also have 2 desks that are setting down on Antietam Street at the auction house. That is setting right there by the curb. I don't get it, because I don't know why they don't move it and do something with it, but we continue to have it. We continue to use our resources to pick up, because no one is trying to find out if in fact it came from the house where it's sitting in front of. Because I've always been told, well, we don't know where it came from. It's time that we do it. And also, the complaints are to me, but my concern has always been, when I've said, city employees, you're an employee of the city, yes, you work for this department or that department, but the city of Hagerstown is still about all of us, and employees included, that if you're in a pickup truck, if you're in a car, please report it. That's how we can get a handle on it much quicker than later. And also, I just want to say thanks for all those who have called, sent cards regarding my husband. He's doing as well as can be expected. He will now begin rehab. It's going to be a long journey for him, but he is alive. And it's just a matter of being able to have and keep a handle on it. But
Great.
thank everybody for their concern.
Indeed. I wanted to mention that Bob Brucci and I will have a forum tomorrow at Hager Hall early in the morning, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. It is not free, and so you have to have tickets or reservations. However, I did learn earlier today that Antietam Cable will be rebroadcasting it starting on Saturday and Sunday at 6 p.m. So just wanted to put that out there for anyone who is interested to take advantage of that opportunity to learn the distinctions between people running in this race. Also, hope that we don't get rained out for the Harvest Hoedown, because it seems like there's a tropical system heading our way, and that might be the day it comes to town. So come and have a wet Harvest Hoedown. You can still have fun in the rain. It's a rain or shine event, right? We're having it as long as there's no thunder and lightning. I also just wanted to mention and give thanks to Mr. Zarabi, who took Councilmember Munson and I and staff on a tour of the old Washington Street School. It's always been one of those buildings I wanted to see what it looked like on the inside, and he acquired that property in 2014. He has some very fantastic plans for it, and has a lot of vision, and I think it could lead to a lot of great things in terms of obviously jobs and economic development opportunities. But and he's done a lot of work already in just cleaning it up and securing the property, and he's already been working with various departments in the city for some of the improvements he's planning to make there, and so I look forward to seeing what comes of that. And also, I'm very pleased to announce that our website, after much long and hard work by staff working with our vendor, our website is finally mobile friendly. So I understand that about 50% of the people who visit our city website do so on their mobile office, as I like to call my phone. Previously, it was very frustrating when I would visit the city's website in my mobile office that it was very not user-friendly. And so I've been annoying staff for the last several years asking about this mobile-friendly capability, and it's taken a long time, and it doesn't happen overnight for sure. I think basically the whole city website had to be redesigned, and in many cases was pared down and made more efficient and overall more user-friendly. But the fact that it's more, it is mobile-friendly now is a huge step in increasing access to city information and services. One of the big features, of course, is the report of concern that, if there's a pothole on your street or there's something happening in your neighborhood, that's a feature that's prominent as soon as you get to the homepage on your cell phone now. So wanted to put that out there and thank Aaron and Scott, all the staff who worked on that project for making it happen. And if there's nothing, go ahead.
Regarding the hoedown, when the fairgrounds were completed, and I know that I was in office when all of this was, it was completed when I was in office. And I know that it was brought to my attention, gee, wouldn't it be nice to have something over here? And I said, you know what, we need to do something, and we need to do something like the hoedown.
Mm-hmm.
And I do give Karen Giffen credit for that, because she's the one who got it started. but I'm just very proud of what we have that day. It started with a handful of people, and I mean, it has grown in the numbers. And it's regardless if it's raining or not, you know, they still show up, so I am very pleased.
And it's really nice. There's a lot of great partnerships where they give out apples and pumpkins to kids. You can make your own scarecrow, and
a lot that have donated to the cause.
petting zoo and entertainment. And I did want to also recognize that we'll be officially dedicating the grandstand facility in honor of Junior Mason, you know, at this 15-year anniversary as well. So, all right, any other comments or anything? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Can you ask?
Oh, yeah. Hey, Kristin, you're